In this video, I will show you how to implement user registration and authentication and how to perform CRUD operations using ASP.NET and Razor Pages. So we will use Identity, Entity Framework, SQL Server, and Scaffolded Razor Pages. First, let's create a new project. Here, let's select ASP.NET Core Web App with Razor Pages. Then Next. Let's provide the project name, then Next. Then we need to select the .NET version. So here I will use .NET 7. Then Create. Now the project is created successfully, so we need to connect to the database. So we can click on Server Explorer. Then let's create a new connection. So the server is available on my computer, so just here we can write dot, which means localhost. Then I want to connect a database called DB7, for example. And we need to trust the server certificate. So let's click on Advanced. Then here we have Trust Server Certificate. Let's set it to True. Then OK. Then let's click on OK. So this database does not exist and I want to create it. So let's click on Yes. Now this connection has been created. And for the moment we don't have any table. So we need to copy the connection string. We can make a right click, then Properties. Then let's copy the connection string. And let's save it into our application. So let's go to appsettings.json. Let's create a new section. And let's call it connection strings. And then let's create our first connection. We can call it default connection, for example. Then let's paste the connection string. And let's save the file. Now we need to add some packages to this application. So we can make a right click, then manage NuGet packages. Let's click on Browse. So we will connect to SQL Server. So we will use Entity Framework. So here we can type EF SQL Server. Let's select this package. And because I am using .NET 7, I will choose a version that is compliant with .NET 7. So I will choose this version, for example. Then install. And now this package is installed correctly. So now we need to install another package, which is from Entity Framework. So we can type EF Tools. Let's select this package. Let's select the version. Then install. Then OK. I accept. And now the package is installed correctly. Also we need identity. So here we can type identity entity. Then let's select this package. It is identity.entityFramework core. Let's select the version. Then install. And now it is installed correctly. So we can close this page. Now we need to create the DbContext class that allows us to connect to the database using Entity Framework. So it is a service, so let's create a new folder. And let's call it Services. Then let's create a new class. And let's call it Application DbContext. And because we will use identity, this class extends the identity DbContext class. Then let's create the constructor. So we can use this button, then generate constructor application DbContext options. Then we need to add this class to the service container. So let's go to program.cs and let's add application DbContext to the service container. So we can call builder.services.addDbContext, and the DbContext that we will use is this application DbContext. And to configure this DbContext class, we need to provide this method with an arrow function. It requires a parameter, we can call it options. Then we need to read the connection string from appsettings.json. So let's create a variable and we can call it connection string. And it is equal to builder.configuration.getConnectionString. Then we need to provide the name of the connection string, which is default connection. Then we need to configure this DbContext class to connect to SQL Server. So here we have to write options.useSQL and let's provide it with the connection string. Let's save all the files. Then we need to create a migration file that allows us to create the identity tables in the database. So we can click on Package Manager Console, then Add Migration. Let's call it First Migration. So now we have this migration file that allows us to create the identity tables in the database. So to create the tables, we have to call Update Database. And now the tables are created successfully. So let's refresh the connection. And now we have the identity tables. Now let's add the identity pages. So we can click on Solution Explorer, then let's make a right click on our application, then Add, then New Scaffolded Item. Let's select Identity, then Add. So all of these files will be added to the application, but only the files that we will select can be modified. In this video, I will not modify any file, but it is necessary to select at least one file. So I will select the smallest file, which is logout. So let's check this box. Then we need to provide the application DbContext. Let's select it. We don't have a user class, so we will use the default user class, which is identity user. Then let's click on Add. Now identity pages are added successfully to this application. And here we can see that we have a new folder called Areas. So it contains the account folder that allows us to modify the logout page. Also, let's go to Pages, then here we have Shared. So we can see that we have this new file. It is called Login Partial. So this file is added by identity, and we have this UL element. So if the user is authenticated, we will display these two items. So we have the username and the logout item. We can change the text of this item, so we can delete hello, and we can delete this exclamation mark. And if the user is not authenticated, then we will display these two items. So we have the register item and the login item. So now we need to display this UL element in the layout file. So let's go to Layout, and here we have the navbar. So in the navbar, we have this UL element that contains these two items. Then after this UL element, we need to display the UL element of this file, Login Partial. So just here after the UL element, we can add partial, then the name of the file. Then let's go to program.cs. So here we can see that we have this new statement that allows us to add identity to the service container. And here we can change the value of a required confirmed account to false. Let's format this a little bit. Then let's run the application. So because we are not authenticated, we have a register and login. Let's click on a register, and this is the register form. And here we have the login form. So let's create a new account. Then a register. So now the account is created successfully and we are authenticated. Here we have the username, so we can see the user profile. Then we have the email address and you can update the password, and also we can click on logout. Now I will show you how to perform CRUD operations using scaffolded razor pages. So first we need to create a model that describes a table in the database. So let's create a new folder. Let's call it models. Then let's create a new class. And let's call it product. Then let's add the different properties of this model. So we need the product ID, the name, the brand, the category, the price, and the description. Then let's create a new dbSet property in application DbContext that allows us to create the products table in the database. So the model that describes the table is the product model. And let's create a table called products. Now let's save all the files. And let's create a new migration file. Let's call it second migration. So here we have the second migration file. Now let's create the table in the database. So we can call update database. But here we have an error. So let's delete the second migration. So we can call remove migration. Then we need to delete the first migration. So to delete the first migration, we need first to delete the tables in the database. So to delete the table, we can call update database, then 0. Then we can call remove migration again to delete the first migration file. So now we can see that we don't have the migrations folder anymore. So let's create our first migration again. So first let's check what we have in the database. So let's refresh the connection. And this time we don't have the identity tables anymore. So now let's create the first migration again. So we can call add migration, first migration. And we obtain this migration file. So this migration file allows us to create the identity tables in addition to the products table. Now let's call update database. Let's refresh the connection. So here we have the identity tables in addition to the products table. Now we can scaffold the razor pages that allow us to perform CRUD operations on products. So let's create a new folder under pages. And let's call it products. Then here, let's scaffold the razor pages. So we can click on add, then new scaffolded item. Then let's select razor pages. Then let's select razor pages using entity framework CRUD. Then add. Let's select the model, which is the product model. Then let's select the application DbContext. Also, we don't need JavaScript validation, so we can uncheck this box. Then let's click on add. And here we have the scaffolded razor pages. So we can find them in the products folder. Then let's add a link to the index page in the navbar. So let's go to the layout file. Then here in this UL element, we can create a new item. So let's copy this item. Let's paste it here. Let's change the text. So let's write products. And let's provide the path of the razor page. So it is available in the products folder. And it is called index.cshtml. So here we have to write index. Now let's run the application. Let's click on products. And here we have the list of products. So for the moment, we don't have any product. So let's create a new product. Let's fill the form. Then create. So now we have this product. Let's create another product. Then create. And now we have two products. So to update the product, we can click on edit. Let's change the name. And let's update the price. Then save. So we can see that we have a new name and a new price. We can see the details of the product. And you can delete a product. Now I will show you how to perform CRUD operations on suppliers. So let's create a new model. And let's call it supplier. Let's add the properties of this model. Then let's create a new dbSet property in application DbContext that allows us to create the suppliers table. So we can create the suppliers table. Now let's save all the files. Let's create a new migration file. And you can call it second migration. So we have this new file. It allows us to create the suppliers table. So now let's update the database. Let's see the created table. So let's refresh the connection. And we have this new table. Now let's add the razor pages. So let's create a new folder in the pages folder. And let's call it suppliers. Then let's add the razor pages. So let's select new scaffolded item, then razor pages, then razor pages using entity framework. Let's select the model, which is the supplier model. Let's select the application DbContext class, then add. And here we have the scaffolded pages. So they are available in the suppliers folder. Then let's add a link to this index page in the navbar. So we can copy this item. Let's paste it here. Let's change the text. So let's write suppliers. And let's provide the path of the page, which is available in the suppliers folder. Let's save the file and let's test the application. Let's click on suppliers. Let's create a new supplier. Let's fill the form. Then create.